Again, and welcome to the 12th step for an enlightened mind and transcending stress and suffering. So remember, this whole thing that we're doing is all about how to reduce the amount of suffering, that is emotional suffering we feel, and how we react to our physical suffering in the world. And that's the purpose. I mean, my life has been devoted in doing psychotherapy for all these years, for the last 40 years, in helping people feel better and overcome their anxiety, their stress, their depression, and so forth. So that's what all these steps are about, to get our mind enlightened. Now let's look at the word enlightened again. And remember, it's got the word light in it. And so one of the outcomes of what we're going to discuss today for the final step, and all of them as they roll into this one, is that life becomes lighter. It becomes less heavy as we realize this. Paul Hederman is the one who pointed out that, as he would say, with this understanding of who we are as the light of consciousness, we travel a little lighter in life. So with that in mind, okay, so today's step is a little bit of a stretch at first to get a sense of. So we're going to try to look at our experience, and I'm going to tell you about something that how I was first introduced to this. It was years ago when I was studying with the Mayan shamans, and the Mayan shamans were teaching that Maya is not an ethnic group, but Maya is a state of consciousness. It's a consciousness, they would say, and that there was a new shift in the world in consciousness, that people's identities are going to shift from this physical mind body to a sense of the oneness of all of life. And you've heard of that before, the oneness. And so in that time frame, I didn't get quite what this spiritual teacher named Doo-Wop Melchizedek got and I'll quote him in a minute, from the head Mayan shaman who I was studying with at the time, along with his those accompanying him. And what it was that this seemingly separate, this reality with all these separate things, names and forms, people, places, things, buildings, trees, galaxies, all the way down to subatomic particles, all of this is really one ultimate reality. And from the teachings we've been going over, you and I are that one reality, that light of consciousness which underlies, which is the fundamental reality in which all this is appearing. So you and I are that stable, enduring, unchanging reality in which names and forms, people, places, and things are appearing to us. Now, with that in mind, Doo-Wop related, and this is a quote of what he learned when he was there, and this was another step beyond what I was getting from the oneness. And what he said was, life is not what it seems, not even close to what most of our parents believe to be true. We live in a dream that our mind has crystallized into what we call reality. We believe that it is fixed and can only be changed according to the laws of physics. The Maya believe you and I will soon know, that there is a part of us that is so ancient, it goes beyond the planets and stars as fixed worlds. For they too are a dream, and like a dream upon waking, we realize they were nothing but pure light, or better still, he says, pure consciousness. So think about that. That means life, this life of ours, is but a dream. You may have heard that. We've in one of my favorite songs from the movie Goodfellas, where Lorraine Bracco and Ray Liotta are dancing at their wedding. Life is but a dream. It's what you make it. And so that's the takeaway from this, that there's a dreamlike quality to life. And let's look at the dream and see how the dream is really one substance. So you and I are dreaming. We could be dreaming we're in a far off land. We could be dreaming that we're falling from a skyscraper. We can dream. We could dream we're flying, and or we could see our house is being broken into, windows broken, the car is stolen. But upon waking, we realize, wait a second, the car is here. Nothing's broken. It was, and we'll say it's just a dream. But when we say that, we're suggesting, okay, it really wasn't real. Now, let's look at the dream elements. Was there really any second thing in the dream aside from the stuff that the dream is made of? And what's the stuff? The stuff of mind, imagination, images. Now, these images have one source, our mind. So there was really no separate other person that we saw when we saw a person in this foreign land. There really was not a building. It was all one substance. We are, in effect, the producer, director, the fashion designer, the set coordinator, like of a movie in that regard, in a dream at night. So similarly, the ancient traditions, and if we look at our own experience, we can begin to see this, like Vedanta and A Course in Miracles teach that, and let's put it this way, Vedanta, there is one ultimate reality, and that thou art. You and I are that one reality, which is really the light of consciousness. Now, A Course in Miracles puts it this way. You and I dream of being in exile, yet perfectly capable of awakening to the reality. So that we are really asleep in God, dreaming of exile. I'm sorry, that's the quote. We are asleep in God, dreaming of exile, yet perfectly capable of awakening to reality. So just like in a dream, we're having a nightmare, yet we're perfectly safe in our bed, but we're not aware that we're in our bed, safe and sound, having this horrendous nightmare. But upon waking, we realize we always were safe. And so in both senses, when you realize that, as we realize that we are that one underlying reality, the light of consciousness in which everything's appearing. So in the dream, our mind is that one reality producing all that we're dreaming. I spent years helping people analyze their dreams to see how they might help them in their conscious waking life. But this is a different thing. This is just really seeing how our life is more dreamlike than we realize. So, for example, think about earlier today when you first got up in the morning. The first thing, again, as I've said many times, that you're aware of as you open your eyes is probably objects in the room. The mirror, if you have a fan, as I do, with a light, ceiling fan, a dresser, whatever. But what's really happening, if we go close to our experience, is the first thing is, I'm awake. I recognize I'm awake. That is, I am aware that I am. And then I'm aware that I'm aware of all these objects in the room. Now that gets glossed over quickly. But as I look at the ceiling fan lying in bed, above my bed on the ceiling, I let that refer me back to that which knows and is aware of the fan. Consciousness. I look at the mirror, I let that refer me back to that which knows and is aware of the mirror. So, in this regard, you can see that you and I are that which knows or is aware of all these objects. And including in the objects, as we first get up in the morning, as we first wake up, is the body and the mind. All this. Thoughts about the day, aches or pains, or the pleasure of feeling ourselves still lying in the bed. All that is appearing in this vast light of consciousness. So, again, the fundamental reality is First, I wake up, and if I don't start looking at everything, I am. Existence is first. I exist. I am. I am aware, consciousness, awareness, and I'm aware that I'm aware. And in that, as Rupert Spira points out, if in that knowing of our own being as consciousness, there can be no resistance, and there's nothing lacking, and there's nothing that can harm us, because there's nothing in itself as consciousness, like the space of a room. There's nothing in the space of the room itself that could harm that space or could add anything to it. So in that sense, the third aspect of this fundamental reality, ancients call bliss. So existence, consciousness, bliss. It's all consciousness in a sense. And those elements, I am aware, and I'm aware that I'm aware. And in that being aware that I'm aware, there can be no harm, there can be nothing added. It's self-contained, it's fulfilled in itself. But, of course, our body-mind wants things. We need food. Our mind likes and dislikes things. But when we step back into that space of the witness of, again, like last week, the three states, the waking state, the waking self, and the waking world, and the waking mind, the dream self, the dream mind, and the dream world, and the deep sleep self that's aware of no objects and hence just aware of a darkness. So as we begin to realize that, take a look at this experience again. Remember a vivid dream you had. Recall a vivid dream. Now, look around the room you're in as you look at the screen that I'm on, as you hear my words. Close your eyes and then visualize what you just saw in your room. Now, shift while your eyes are still closed back to the vivid dream. Go back and forth between the vivid dream and what you just saw in the room. And beyond the present moment, so much of what we're aware of is what we had for breakfast this morning. That's almost like a dream. What we imagine we'll have for dinner, that's got a dreamlike quality. Everything is changing, and everything like a dream, there's a quality of looking back to last year, looking ahead to the next year, looking at a dream image, looking at as you close your eyes, looking at this reality. There's a sense of it having like a dream-like quality, as real as it seems. But again, remember, in a dream, we stub our toe, it hurts. It's real, so it's relatively real. Just like this is relatively real, this that is taking place in consciousness. We have aches and pains in our body and suffering in our mind and pleasures and so forth, just like in a dream. If you have sex in a dream, you may have an orgasm. Your body may respond. If you get, again, punched in a dream, you may have the wind knocked out of you, and it feels very real. So it's relatively real. Then we wake up. So in this sense, all these steps were to wake up to realizing that we are that which knows and is aware. We are that one fundamental reality. There's no second reality. There's no second thing. The computer, the desk, the sofa, the trees outside, they're all appearances in this reality. So it's a little tougher to understand. Now, one last thing I'll say about this is, now what does that mean? If life is but a dream, or it seems like a dream, just like a dream, how do we conduct our lives? Well, as the Maya have a greeting that really translates to, as they tilt their head, and it's not like namaste, the God in me salutes the God in you. That's similar from a Hindu standpoint, recognizing the God or consciousness. In this case, it's you or another me is the Maya salute. And so that being the case, it's like when Christ said, love thy neighbor as thyself. Why? Because your neighbor, in essence, beyond this different body mind they have in personality, is consciousness, is spirit. Another way to think of it is this fundamental reality is like the sun. And all of us, as these separate forms and body minds, are like rays of the sun activating or shining on these separate forms that we see ourselves as. It's like that experience I talked about in my pre-birth recollection, where I re-experienced my suffering hunger in the womb in this little tiny fetal body, but then realizing there was another consciousness within the womb and beyond, just like there were with the women I worked on, helping them get their reluctant to be born babies to be born, to overcome their reluctance. And I realized there was a little consciousness in them and beyond them. And that consciousness, as I aligned myself with it, I felt peace and I could handle that hunger. So it's like, another way to put it is, all of us are all these individual souls and bodies, but that which we really are is this fundamental one consciousness that extends into these forms and animates these forms. Again, I love Eckhart Tolle's quote, and I'll modify it slightly. He says, well, I'll say it the way he said it first. In the stillness of my presence, I can feel my own formless and timeless reality as the unmanifested life that animates this physical form. I can then feel that same life deep within every other human and every other creature. I look beyond the veil of forms and separation. This is a realization of oneness. This is love. And then he says, what is God? The eternal one life hidden in the myriad forms of life. And what is love? To feel the presence of that one life and all that is. Now, I would say it this way. In the stillness of my awareness, I can feel my own formless and timeless reality as the unmanifested life and consciousness that animates this physical form. I can then feel that same life and consciousness deep within every other creature and every other human. I look beyond this veil of names and forms of all this seeming separation. This is the realization of oneness, that all is one reality, there is no second. And this is love. But what is God? The eternal one life and consciousness hidden in the myriad forms of life and consciousness. And what is love but to feel the presence of that? And when we're feeling that, it doesn't get better than that. So this week, the final step is breathing in. I am that which dreams all this. Breathing out. And I am that which appears as all this. What does that mean? I am consciousness in which all this is appearing, and I, as consciousness, am appearing as all this. Just like in the dream at night, you could say, in the dream at night, my mind, it's happening all within my mind. All this is appearing in my mind, and then it also, my mind is appearing, taking shape as all this. So it's pretty heavy, what we're talking about today. But you and I can proclaim, I am that, breathe in, I am that which dreams all this, body, mind, world, breathing out, and I am that which is appearing as all this. Now remember, a way to look at that is, what do I know of, say, the desk? I know the touch of it, the sensation of it. But what do I know of the sensing of the desk? What I know is just knowing. So ultimately, I don't really know a sensing of it. I just know it. And in that sense, what do I know of seeing? I don't know really of seeing, but ultimately, what do I know of seeing is the knowing of seeing, or actually just knowing. This is what Rupert Spira talks about. So that the fundamental knowingness or consciousness is all we can really know. We don't really know an outside separate world. Thought tells us that, we believe that, But we only know what we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell through our senses, or think about, or feel. And so in that regard, consciousness is fundamental. So this week, every once in a while, just take a look and think about, I am that which is dreaming all this just like a dream at night. And just like a dream at night, I am that which is appearing as all this, like the mind is. So it's pretty heavy, but I refer you to my books and the latest one, and there'll be a link